Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to the NLC Div 2 Spring Promotion Tournament 2, where we are here in the midst of what could become a pretty decent best of 5 flipper. Invulnerables able to fight back against K5 in Game 2 to even up the series, and said it wasn't going to be a 3-0, but prove them right.
Yeah, and it's very nice to see that now it's on the side of K5 to adapt. On the side of Vulnerable, they were not afraid of these picks that they were shown in game one where they lost. They were like, okay, yeah, we see you. Now we're gonna actually show you our real game. And they pull out a very good game with their new picks. They picked the Fiora, they picked better scaling, and they showed off why it is so important. Fiora with the great unofficial pentakill in that game, able to take over and absolutely smash it.
And I think it's kind of recognizing the pace that the series has been going at, because we've had 2 early games right now, which, to be frank, Flipper, been a little bit boring, a little bit slow paced, a little bit resident sleeper, but that does favor these picks like the Furon, like the Karthus, I think, that scale so incredibly well and function absolutely brilliantly at the 30-minute mark.
Yeah, and now I'm looking towards K5. What is your answer to this Fiora Karthus picks that you just saw who were able to just take over the game? And the Tryndamere for that, like he was
Yeah.
also able to in the early game put a stamp on how this game was played, able to pick up first blood, able to just put down the pressure. So I'm looking towards to see if they're actually able to find an adaptation here. Because first game it was Invulnerable who lost and made an adaptation for game two. It wasn't the adaptation to say, okay, we can't beat this stuff, so let's remove it. It
Yeah.
was let's find new picks who's actually able to answer this, and then they were able to do that now. So now I want to see what is the answer now from the side of K5. Are they gonna say we need to now take away? Are they gonna say, oh no, we cannot face this Fiora now. This Fiora was too much of a problem. Or are they gonna say we are not afraid of your picks either? We have this in our books, which is able to take it out. So it's definitely
Well,
looking
well,
like it's gonna be a very interesting game.
that's ideally what you want. You want like the back and forth is like, I've countered you. No, we could counter you actually. And I think that a key pick was actually the B1, the Silas. It's been B1 in both the games so far, and I think the value that it had in this game compared to game one, it was completely night and day. You can't steal away something like the Renata ult, and whilst the Requiem is available for you to take away, it didn't feel like that had the same sort of potency or team fight impact as something like that stolen support ultimate. So I wonder if maybe that's where we see an adaptation. Don't go for this blind, powerful mid laner. Wait a little bit longer for the rest of the draft to sort of reveal itself before you go for a pick like that.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely seemed like that the plan of making sure you don't have many ults for the Silas to take definitely worked out. And it is a good take to say, okay, maybe the Silas is not what we first pick. Maybe you say, let's just first pick Nodus fresh if they're gonna leave it open all the time, and leave it for later to see if you can actually find counter picks instead.
But even then, like you talk about the power of Nodu's Thresh, do we start to get to the point where actually the Thresh isn't offering the things that we necessarily want it to? Because it didn't feel like K5 were able to find as clean engages as they would have liked. So maybe something like a Nautilus or a Leona, something where the go button is a bit more obvious and a bit more instant to get on top of these Invulnerables champions that wanted to scale and wanted to take their time.
Yeah, I want to agree with you, but it is Nodus fresh, so I'm like, yeah, it's like I don't mind. I can forgive one off game where they
I'm
would
ready.
maybe
I'm
didn't
ready
get.
for him to go like 0-10 this game, and we get into like everyone's like, yeah, I think Nodu's Thresh is still a must value.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna sit there and I'm gonna be like, up until it's like disaster mode, then I still want to see him on the Thresh and nothing else because I love him on that champion. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, definitely agree. It is possible to go for another kind of engaged champ if they need it. When we saw them against Started Talent, the reason why they were so good in that game was because they were able to keep going, and that's
Hmm.
one thing that I want to see from them in this series now. You've been put down, but you're definitely not out. You still won the first game, and you can still pull out some of the crazy picks that you did against Australian talent. They did fight against them 24/7. They were not afraid to go in, and that's what I want to see from them from the
Yeah.
future.
Well, I mean, that's a key thing, right? Like we saw the hands checking in team fights kind of come out from K5 in the first game, right? It was even for a really long time. They get to the team fights and they were just executing better than Invulnerable. So I think if that's a style that you can play towards, and if you build your composition in a way that enables that sort of play pattern, it's a bit less passive, a bit less reactive to what the enemy is doing. that's always going to put you in good stead, because you never want to be just reacting 24/7 in a League of Legends game, because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you just end up reacting to your Nexus dying, and there's not much that you can do at that point.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely looking to be a banging series at least. I'm hoping for 5 games so far. I want to see this game go to one way and then having to find a new adaptation, and then the last game being the all-out brawl of a banger where they just pull it all on the line.
So I think that really does set us in an interesting position, because K5 actually selecting red side for this game. So in
Okay.
terms of the pick and ban, that's going to roll to your strategies and give you a little bit more of these counter picks, a little bit less focus on the raw power.
Yeah, it's definitely putting me on the vibes of saying, okay, Silas is not as powerful as they thought. They were like, okay, they thought no matter what, Invulnerable are gonna pick these crazy good ultimates for Silas to steal.
Mm.
They just showcase they don't need to do that. They can pick champions who don't have like these crazy ults, and now they're gonna go on to the red side instead to see if they can actually pull out the counter picks themselves into whatever Invulnerable are gonna first pick.
Well, we'll have to see if that is the case, as we are jumping into the champion select. And in the previous game, we saw very, very similar stuff in terms of the bans coming through from both these teams. It was the Olaf, the Misfortune, and the Sejuani being focused out by K5. And then a few of these AD carries in the bottom lane that can apply pressure, like the Draven, like the Caitlyn from Invulnerables. We'll have to see if that is going to be the case, as Champion Select is not ready for us quite yet. So we're going to be jumping back to seeing our beautiful faces a little bit better.
Yeah, I mean, someone is trying to pull the Fnatic pulse a bit too early this time. I have to wait like 10 more minutes, and then you can do it, and then it'll work just fine. But yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to see how this draft turns out, because I think it'll be a completely new draft from both sides. Definitely
Okay.
just new bans, I would expect, because when you switch sides, it's definitely because I think, at least from the side of K5, they have a plan for red side, is what I hope. They have decided, okay, we're gonna go towards red side here because they have some kind of pick up their sleeve, I think, where they can actually potentially surprise Invulnerable with that.
Oh, hey, look, Flipper. It's Champ Select. I've not seen that before.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
time.
so obviously Invulnerables like still going to be on the blue side, so we'll have to track whether the bands are different. But sort of as someone that has played a fair bit of competitive League of Legends yourself, how does switching sides sort of in the middle of a series like this, how does it change things up? Where do you typically want to be doing with a side switch like this?
Usually you do it because the other team chooses to go to the other side. But in the rare cases where you feel like you have to switch the side yourself, it's basically in the sense of, okay, something isn't quite working as you expected from practice. So you think, okay, something has changed. So for example, they had the priority of Silas first pick. Now
Mhm.
they're saying, okay, Silas first pick is not what they thought it was. So now they're saying, okay, we have counters to what Silas is ourselves then. Now they're saying we can do whatever you might first pick better than you.
Well, and it does lay down a gauntlet for Invulnerables. It's like, okay, the Silas has got 1 win, 1 loss. Is it something that you feel like it's necessary to first pick away? Or do we see something like a B1 Varus, which, whilst it's not been massively impactful, it is still this strong pick in the bottom lane that can kind of withstand any pressure that you're going to throw at it? And the bans that are coming out are identical to the game one bans so far, but that Trendemir removed from K5, recognizing the power that Fizz could pilot on the pick.
Yeah, I'm surprised that they chose to ban the Tryndamere and not the Fiora, because I feel like Fiora was definitely more so of an annoying champion in the last game, but Tryndamere definitely also did leave his mark on that game, so I understand it perfectly. But I'm now looking towards this first pick here. Are you gonna pick the Varus or are you gonna pick Silas yourself? It is gonna end up being the Varus. It has been a stable pick for the Cyber Invulnerable. Every time they pick, they've managed to get early prio, get
Mm.
cheetah recalls, especially in the last game. We saw them push in bot heavily, get a cheetah recall, continue to pick up that pressure. Is it gonna be the Silas pick again? That definitely if they're gonna do that.
We don't talk about hovers until they're locked in, but yeah, the B1 Varus, I think it also doesn't reveal very much about your composition. And K5, feeling like the Silas was fine. I mean, it does deny the ability for Invulnerables to pick stuff like the Renata you'd have to feel to pick these big team fight ultimates, but still, it's a gauntlet that's been thrown down, Flipper.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they're saying, okay, the reason why Silas wasn't working was because of the Tunamare. So they banned the Tunamare away, and then they're saying, okay, now there's clearly nothing for sure that can actually take me away. And we do see a Draven pick into the Varus. Okay, this bot lane just got real spicy.
Okay, okay. So Draven is a pit that we don't see in competitive all the time, right, Flipper? But if solo queue, in my experience with it, is anything to go by, this is all about early aggression. This is all about power in the first sort of 10 minutes.
Yeah, definitely. And it is a great response if they pick the Braum. A usual counter you see into Draven is the Braum because he's a solid frontline who's able to block these auto attacks from a Draven who usually just one shots an AD carry or a mage.
Yeah, it also helps deny stuff like the Silas, like diving in as well. The Glacial Fissure is such an impactful tool at preventing some of these gauges. And actually, Invulnerables stealing away that Fiora. Uzol once again gonna have the opportunity to get himself a real pentakill in this game.
Yeah, and now I'm looking at the side of K5. You left this up so you had counter fake pick here. What is the counter to this Fiora? Because if they are not gonna punish this blind Fiora pick, then I'm really gonna question how this draft is gonna look after them. But I'm a big fan of the Thresh. I still love the Thresh. I still love it. I mean, it's like I wanted to see a counter pick, but I mean, if they're gonna pick Thresh, then they know
Of
my
course.
heart, so
And
they still end up getting that.
And I think with the Draven, you can actually play a little bit aggressive with this, like flash flaying. We've seen Nodu do that quite a few times this series. And when you've got the damage of a Draven to back that up, that's usually a pretty good play. But this means that Invulnerables will be able to ban away a couple of bad matchups in top lane if they want to in this second phase and get Uzol something that is even more comfortable attacking.
Yeah, I mean, I I love Nodo Fresh, but I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I was hoping that they were gonna actually counterpick this Fiora, because now again I can see Fiora just having a field day as he had last game in the top lane, getting that pressure, making sure that he's able to stay through this early game and just take over in the later stages of the game again.
I think that's a very smart ban on the Poppy. We've seen Starduster in game one be absolutely ridiculous on it, and a champion that's good against champions with dashes. Fiora has a lot of dashes. I think it makes sense, but again, this is why we wanted to see that top on R3 come out from K5. There's got to be a
Yeah.
plan here.
I mean, they banned the Karthus out, which I think is very smart. They cannot run into another kind of style where they end up having a bunch of AD champions and then a Karthus ult on top. So I really love that ban because he definitely left a mark on last game. And we do see Karthus and Tunamel removed from this game, which was a big problems from the side of K5 last game. So they do still have the Fury, which did also do very well last game, but it's interesting to see if they're able to now maintain this level of play they had with these champions last game on some new champions on mid and jungle, which we will see in a second here.
Yeah, intriguing that we do see the Graves ban away from Painful when the games have been sort of as slow as they are. That farming style is still encouraged, but the Kindred is still available. And whilst it wasn't able to win in the previous game, I still feel like it had a good game and can match to a certain extent what the Fiora can do in the later stages. But actually, K5 going, we're going to switch things up again. Pick up this Maokai, could go into the top lane or the jungle.
Yeah, Maokai was a pick that was picked very early on at Worlds and then kind of fell off because it didn't have the impact anymore. People kind of figured out the pick, but doesn't mean that it won't have any impact this game. Still a very strong pick if the side of Invulnerable doesn't have the tools to deal with it. And right here, it's a very solid frontline that can set up for Draven to get the ball rolling.
And I think this is smart. I think here from Invulnerables locking in the Victor. Scaling, long range damage threat that doesn't really have a bad time in many lane matchups and can kind of just exist, get to that sort of level 16 mark and take over as the
And that's a
Belveth.
Belveth. Holy moly. Okay. I mean, Invulnerable is saying games are going slow, so let's just pick the best scaling champions that there are. And they're not kidding. They're picking Victor, they're picking Fiora, and they're picking Belveth. An infinite scaling champ on top of some very strong scaling champions.
And when with the pace of the games, I can't really blame them
I
for
love
it.
that.
But
I love that.
K5 are looking to accelerate the Jarvan. All about the early aggression, all about getting the ganks down, pairs up beautifully with what the rest of K5 have built.
And I especially love it when I look at the side of invulnerable. There have been no dashes on their mid laner and support. No, on their mid laner and their AD carry, and they're not able to actually get out of this cataclysm from the Jarvan, which means that now they have to really maintain their flashes. And throughout the series, people have been throwing away flashes left, right, and center, and now we will see consequences. Now, if they do it, this Xiao will lock them down and they will not be able to get out. So I'm very happy to see this Xiao pick because they need to snowball. I'm looking at a vulnerable lineup here who will scale so good. They will
Yeah.
be out of this world when they come free items and they'll just take over. But when I'm looking at the side of K5, I see a Draven, I see a Jarvan, I see a Thresh, and they can just take over here. They can just go crazy in the bot lane, go for dives with the Silas, and just see if they can actually just get the snowball rolling.
I just want to see 3 kills before 10 minutes. That's all I want, Flipper. And I think if you're a K5 fan, you kind of need to see 3 kills before 10 minutes, because if you allow yourself to get outscaled like happened in the previous game, I mean, the Fury is going to have an absolutely lovely time against the Maokai in the side lane, and you've got such a strong sort of 4-person core here with the Belveth, Victor, Varus, and the Braum that it's so difficult to actually get on top of.
Yeah, when I'm looking at both sides and how this game will function, the agency for K5 is very high. They have a lot of engaged opportunity with the Jarvan and the Maokai. And when I'm looking at the side of Invulnerable, they are kind of a lineup who's saying, okay, you just come jump into us. Jump into us right now and we'll see if we can just one-shot you when you come in. So it's gonna be like the invulnerable or the immovable object against the unstoppable force, where one team will just ram into the other and see if they can run them over, while the other team will just be like trying to stand still and make sure that they are not being moved at all.
Well, we'll see if that plays out as we are on to the Rift for the 3rd game of this series. Invulnerables and K5 both sat at 1 game each, looking to gain an advantage in this 3rd game. A reminder, the loser of this series, they're not out of contention for the promotion to Division 2, but would drop down into the lower bracket and would have to make a hell of a run to get to that final, to get to the playoff match, and to get into the upper echelons of the NLC. So winning here, definitely encouraged.
Yeah, and it's definitely shaping up to be a tight game here. Both teams are really looking to secure this win. If you win this game, you gain the momentum and you will be sitting at match point. So both teams are kind of in a situation where they're not in a must-win situation, but a win here could definitely shape you up to win this series.
Fierce, that's not a great way to start. It's able to trade back a fair bit of damage, but I think it's interesting that neither of these teams have really gone for anything too crazy at the level 1.
And that's actually very big for mid lane. Cobbin gets a good trade early on, and he gets experience from a ward, which will mean he will get level 2 on this wave. We could actually see a potential big all-in from Cobbin if Fierce does not respect the XP gain he gets here.
And when you compare that up with a Jarvan that is notorious for doing sort of one camp into just ganking somewhere, maybe something to watch out for in the early stages as Cobbin, yeah, once again trading very aggressively. Interesting that the Silas has opted to go towards the first strike when you're in a range matchup. Is that something that you feel like Cobbin's going to be able to play around, or maybe something that could actually hurt him a little bit in this lane?
I imagine it's essentially saying we have to win as fast as possible, and I need all the gold I can get, so he's gonna be looking to get some good combos followed up on the Jarvan. So it's gonna hurt him in the lane, but if he's able to combo with the Jarvan, it can snowball the game even further right now.
Extra 17 gold. I mean, it does stack up over time, right? Getting to your item breakpoints just that little bit earlier can be so crucial when, at the professional level, you are playing around objective timings, about wave states, and there are only specific windows where you can actually go for things. So we'll have to track how that plays out. This is a matchup that I think Uzol's going to be pretty happy against the Fiora, notorious for her ability to cut down these tanks in the top lane. I think Stardust are a bit more focused on providing utility in the team fights, as we may be looking at that mid lane all-in smart flash from Fierce to get away.
Yeah, and that is what you want to see if you're a K5 fan. Getting an early flash from Fierce will mean that this lane is going to be very hard for him to get control in, and it will mean that now K5 has a point of pressure to look towards. They can look for a repeat gank. A flash basically from either Cobbin or Painful will secure a kill now onto Fierce if he's stepping up at all.
And in the bottom side, we're sort of seeing a little bit of a switch up from the story of this series so far. It's Floops and Nodu who have been able to secure a bit of the early shove, which is what the Draven is all about. And even though the Varus can do some stuff in the early game, the raw damage that he can put out just isn't really comparable.
Yeah, Draven has to be able to just get these stacks up, and if he's able to get a kill in 5 to 10 minutes, he can definitely get a big pressure point in the bot lane. And it's good to see that they're able to, as you say, push this wave out and actually get some control, because that's what they've been lacking from the side of K5 in this series so far.
Yeah, but we did mention in the Champions that they do need to be aggressive in the early game. Burning some of these sort of flashes, these summoner spells is great, but you need to capitalize on, which I think is something that we haven't really seen from the teams too much. They've been a lot more content to sort of take these summoner spell advantages and use them to grow laning leads rather than to get some kills.
Definitely. This game, I do not want to see that though. This game, I want to see.
Hey, Flipper, I didn't want to see it in the previous 2 games, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, for sure. This game, it's even more important that they're able to utilize the flashes being down. They already got one on Fierce, but I wanna see them use this to make sure that they're actually able to snowball out the game. We do see something that is crucial though. Fierce has a slow pushing wave in the mid lane towards Coven, and Hellish comes in and helps him shove it out, so now he gets a free base, which is crucial because this could have been a point of pressure for Painful to look to actually kill Fierce.
It's smart jungling, right? It's not just going into a lane to gank it and try and get a kill. It's recognizing that actually, hold on, my mid lane is in a really rough spot here if I don't help him out. So going, making sure that wave resets, and Fierce is going to be able to TP back into lane with an Amp Tone and a Dark Seal at his backers. Actually been having an alright time in terms of the CS and the laning up against Coben, but that all-in thread is always something you need to watch out for.
Yeah, and it's now after these first resets here that I want to see Painful now look to capitalize on this no flash Victor. If he is not able to now kill him in the next 2 minutes, that's huge for the side of Invulnerable, that they're able to stave off this pressure point where they could have been looking to get a kill from the side of K5.
Nodu once again in the mid lane. He's set up shop here a few times so far in this series, but with the waves so close to Fierce's tower, it's unlikely that the Thresh is going to be able to secure anything. In the bot lane, Floops has taken that early recall and has come back with a serrated Dirk, so this is something that the Draven can really use to flex up against the Varus. But hey, Piscalo has the Dirk of his own in inventory.
Yeah, and we do see Nodu and Painful linking up here, looking for plays to make. And so far, Invulnerable playing the lanes well. They have been able to hold a freeze in mid, making it so they cannot gank, and they're gonna be able to push out this wave and get a back off again. So lane so far going very well for Invulnerable, considering that K5 needs to get this early lead.
They've sort of prevented the aggression from really coming out, which is what we need to see. The Drakes have been a pretty good indicator of the team that's going to win the game in this series. In K5 starting up this Inferno at 6.5 minutes with Hellish pathing towards the top side. I think a steal from Piscalo is the only real possibility, but it's not going to come out.
Surely he will not steal it, right?
Clueless.
Surely this will not...
Oh, okay.
Doesn't go over.
Nodu actually yellow starring a little bit there in the bottom lane. Tribrush's Starduster TPing up to topside once again. That's something we've seen actually a couple times from Starduster now, being willing to rotate early for these objectives and then teleport back into the top lane. 5 members of K5 hunting for members in the bot lane. Nodu with a flash double play into the hook, and first blood goes to the Draven.
Okay, I was about to say maybe we do not want to see the Fresh next game after that turn of events, but he just makes me a believer once again. Able to land the hook after the flash and set up a beautiful kill for the Draven, who now got his cash in, which is massive for him.
Yeah, can we have a little look at the gold on the Draven now, observers, if that is at all possible? Oh,
that is a 5th Draven now.
That is
Draven in a nutshell.
I'm not okay with that. I'm really not okay with that, Flipper.
Yeah, but that's what you want to see now. They're able to attain a gold lead 1000. It is sitting on towards this Draven, but a gold lead on Draven can be the difference maker in this game.
Oh, Uzul maybe a little bit too far up. Hellish is hovering around top lane with level 6, and I think that was the cost of that investment of time into the bot lane, is that Uzul had a little bit more freedom up in this top side and has built himself a 20 CS lead up against Maokai, and we already know how disgustingly terrifying this Fiora can be. But Flipper, we're crouching towards 10 minutes, and neither team has really blown open the game early on.
Yeah, I'm looking at K5 here saying, okay, you have gotten your cash in on Draven, and you've gotten an early Drake. So I'm gonna say thumbs up for being able to do that, because that's what they need to do. They need to continue stacking these Drake, continue to play around this Draven. What I do want to see now from them in the future is see if they can bleed the lead they have in bot lane towards Sylas here. I want them to see if they can potentially get another flash down from Fierce, so that when this next Drake spawns, there's no potential contest from the side of Invulnerable.
I like this from Stardust. They're actually sort of taking it to Uzul a fair bit here on the Maokai. That Glacial Shroud, the additional ability, haste, and armor, very, very important in these matchups versus the Fiora. Obviously doing mostly physical damage, as we are seeing, well, an Eclipse already for Floops in the bot lane. This Draven is disgusting, and there's very little that Invulnerables can do to counteract this dive. Piscolo actually clearing out the wave just in time to call it off for the time being, and the minion wave is a little bit too far away for K5.
Okay, I was feeling a dive in bot here, but they call it off in the end, and they're just saying, okay, we're happy with taking the Crux, and they're now gonna try to see if they can move this Jarvan towards the mid lane. He does have ult, and a Jarvan with ult against a no-flash Varus does seem like a very juicy kill in my book. The one thing that is interesting this series, usually one of the teams that are very highly priced, as we see an all-in top here.
Yeah, Uzul gets all of the Visor procs, so the bonus healing has been achieved. As Painful getting a double cataclysm into a double flay in the bot lane. Sander forced low as well. The hook lands because of course it does, and that's another kill for Floops.
Yeah, and the bot lane from K5 seems to have come alive here. Noru hitting the hooks here, and Floops sitting on 2 kills now, and just able to take over.
Auburn forced low as Fierce is pressuring him out with the Chaos Storm, and Silas taking to around about 200 HP. If anyone could get into this mid lane in just a moment, they can cause some real havoc here, but neither player deciding that they want to go forward and risk it all.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely shaping up to see the reverse of our previous game, where Invulnerable needed to get the early game lead. They got the early game lead, they closed out the game very good. And now it's the opposite. K5 needs the early game lead, and they seem to have gotten the early game lead. Let's see if they can now do the same that Invulnerable did to them and be able to close out this game.
And it was exactly what you were talking about. It's additional pressure towards the Draven. It's playing through Floops, the guy that was incredible on the Civ. The late game carry in game 1 is now having pretty damn good performance on the Draven in game 3. 2-0-1 has got some Zerka Greaves and a Serrated Dirk in addition to that Eclipse, and is continuing to build this lead over Piscolo. And now Nodu can sort of freely move around the map as they've rotated the bot lane into the middle part of the map.
Yeah, I definitely want to see them pick up this Drake. It can be a bait for some team to go for the Herald here instead, but if I'm K5 here, I want to get towards that soul point as fast as possible to force Invulnerable into a state where they are feeling they have to contest when they might not be strong enough to contest.
Still got to remember, Uzul in the side lane is getting towards that Divine Sunderer incredibly quickly and will take out a couple of more plates. This Fiora, it's a threat. It's a threat that you need to deal with, and that's why K5 are so heavily incentivized to get this bot lane rolling, to get these early dragons, because you can't wait 30 minutes and allow that Fiora to come online.
Ooh, this is definitely looking very scary. If you're able to pick up 4 plates here already, it's
maybe
definitely
even the full tower.
Oof. Yeah, it's definitely not ideal for the side lane, but they are trading. They did get the Drake, and they are able to get a plate here in bot as well, but definitely not an ideal trade. They do end up now almost closing the gold lead, because they're able to get the top tower with the Fiora, and they're able to steal away the jungle camps with Belwyth.
And it puts us in a very sort of split map state in terms of who's got the power. It's Uzul and Hellish for Invulnerable on this top side, and it's kind of all-in Floops in the bottom lane. Cobbin throwing out the ultimate there, maybe setting up a play here onto Sander, who's going to use the Glacial Fizzer to disengage it. Chains of Corruption come through, but they will buy but moments of time. Painful, still going forward. The Cataclysm locks down the Braum, and Floops gets the third kill. No-do flash hooks, goes millimeters wide as Hellish roaming down into the bot lane.
Yeah, and that's what you need. You see Yusol able to take control of the top, and he gets the turret, and they're able to make a dive happen in bot. So now that's very good, because that means they're able to respond in bot side, get the tower, and continue to extend the gold lead. They were about to slip away, losing that gold lead, but in the end they are able to now return a bot tower, as we see the Herald used in mid.
Well, this is going to force competition. Hellish flashing forwards, testing the reactions of the K5 mid laner, who, well, reacts just in time, I guess, and that's 4 kills now in these early stages going in favor of K5. A 2.2k gold advantage, and an early game which is going the way that it needed to.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely what you are hoping to see if you're a K5 fan, but if you're an Invulnerable fan, you would not count these guys out just yet. Their top laner is very fed. He might be 0-0-0, but that's very deceiving. He got 5 plates, first blood tower, and a big CS lead in this game. So he's definitely at a strong point in this game, as we can look at the gold here and see that he's up 2.2k gold in the top lane. It's but in the bot lane, it is 4.4k. Okay, that is an even crazier gold lead. 4.4k gold lead in favor of Floops is unheard of at this point in the game. We have 14 minutes in, and he is so far ahead. Holy moly.
I'm really not okay with that on a fundamental level. Like that hurts me, but it means that if you're Invulnerables and you can play away from this Draven, if he isn't in the fights, then that gold lead that K5 have got, which is around about 1,000 in favor, actually switches over to being 3,000 in Invulnerables' favor. It's so much on Floops to be the carry for K5 that if at any point he oversteps, if at any point he gets a little bit too Tyler 1-esque and runs it down, then the rest of the fight is all Invulnerables.
This looks very dangerous here from the side of K5. They're moving in, they're looking to be caught out.
Trying to catch out the Draven, but no, it was all a bait. The Unbreakable providing a lot of value, and Piscolo actually getting the first kill of the fight, but it's 2 in favor of K5. Spreading that gold around a little bit, and Invulnerables, they do pick up their first kill, but they still lose out in the play.
Yeah, it's very good for K5. They get jumped on, but yeah, it seems like Invulnerable forgot who they were going up against. Floops on the Draven is extremely fed, and he just says, "What are you guys doing?" And he just turns around and he does 1,000,000 damage, able to make them very low. Ends up giving a kill over to Painful and Cobbin, and only in one in response with Nodu dying.
And now we've got a minute to go until the Dragon, and K5 are well and truly poised to take that one. Uzul has been doing a great job pushing in this side lane. Cobbin fishing for a pick in the middle lane. Tower's still standing here. Invulnerables in a rough spot.
Yeah, and we see now the Drake is spawning in 1 minute, and it's definitely looking in the perfect spot for K5. They're gonna be able to pick up Soul Point, and they're gonna, from that point onwards, be able to force Yusol to group with his team and have to team fight against this extremely fed Draven.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's going to be music to Stardust's ears, because it can't be enjoyable having to face down the Fiora constantly in the side lane, but as soon as you get into those big team fights, the Nature's Grasp is such a ridiculously powerful tool at locking down mobile carries like Fizz, like Piscolo, and if you can get one of those kills, start chaining them together, then you can really take over the rest of the fight as K5. Invulnerables, they do have the opportunity to get a little bit of mid-priority here with a momentary numbers advantage, but it doesn't really feel like a numbers advantage when you're facing down a 2-item Draven at 17 minutes.
Yeah, it does definitely seem like Invulnerable will contest the Shake. They're gonna TP in here, and I expect to see Stardust the TP in, and we will have our first big fight of the game here.
Yeah, you gotta remember, this is where K5 really found their advantages in game one. It was through these team fights, it was through taking it to Invulnerables, and they're the ones coming in here with the advantage. Hellish has already started up that Drake as the hook lands onto Uzul's. Painful is diving in, but Nodu is already dead. Floops is trying to 1v1 Hellish on the back line. Not a lot of mana on the Draven, but a hell of a lot of damage. That's 2 kills already in favor of K5ers. Meanwhile, on the other side, Uzul is doing pretty damn good things. So the Draven is so incredibly low and gets taken out somehow. Invulnerables find a fight in the bottom side river, and Fierce with full HP forces Cobbin away.
Yeah, it almost felt like they got back vision from the last game, and they just saw Yusol take over again. In the end, they're able to kill him, and it ends up being 4v4 with the Drake still standing. So it seems like we're gonna have another brawl as they all run out of the map, trying to get down to this Drake and see if they can get to it, so they can actually secure it. Because if it goes to the side of K5, it could be detrimental for the side of Invulnerable and vice versa.
Yeah, Cobham going to be TPing forward. Fierce has only just run back to his base and is going to be able to TP in himself. I like how we've had multiple skirmishes over multiple games where it's not about the first fight and who wins that, it's about the second fight, going back to the scene of the crime to commit a few more murders. Invulnerable with a move into the river first.
Yeah, it seems like they're gonna have to free start on it. Are they gonna be able to make it to maybe potentially make a steal? Definitely does seem like it, as the fight will commence in the second here.
Gravity Field prevents K5 from moving forward, but there goes the Nature's Grasp. They're going to be able to take out Sander as he's flashing away in the front line, but will fall down. The Dragon not really enough for Vulnerables to finish it, as in dies Hellish, dealing so much damage with the Raw Mainstream, and Colburn incredibly low floops, still full HP on the Draven. 3 items completed at this point is an absolute menace, but backing away still Invulnerables with just that little bit more pressure.
Yeah, and it's such close fights, and here you can see the power of having a fed Draven and versus a team with a good frontline. Because Stardust is so far behind, he's not able to be the frontline that K5 needs, and meanwhile they're not able to kill the frontline, which is the Belveth, fast enough in comparison, and they're actually able to secure the Drake here as a result.
Yeah, K5 are going to look for a fight that was painful with the Cataclysm, will be forced to get away. Floops getting a kill onto Hellish, that's good, but the win condition for K5 slowed down a little bit, and if Invulnerables are able to keep finding fights like that one in the river, then this gold lead that K5 have built for themselves doesn't seem as formidable.
Yeah, and it's definitely getting into the point where scaling begins to matter more and more. We're seeing one item completed on every champion, and when these items begin coming in more, it's gonna be harder and harder. Because Stardust got put into such a hole, he dies like paper, and he's just dying immediately at the start of the fight, while because Belveth has this damage reduction, she's able to stay alive and maintain herself up in the fights.
And it feels like Floops hasn't been able to sort of get into these fights properly and deal as much damage as he would like to on the Draven. The zoning tools that Invulnerables have at their disposal, we already talked about the Glacial Fissure, but basically the entirety of Victor's kit, now that Fierce is on 2 items, is anathema to exactly what an AD carry wants to do. Cobbin stealing away the Varasol, but Uzol with a very strong riposte stays alive.
Yeah, that was definitely very well played from Uzol. He's definitely feeling itself. It seems like he's, again in this game, popping off, showing K5 that they need to ban this champion for the remainder of the series, because he seems to be a massive problem for them to deal with when he's on Fiora.
And it's not just about the split pushing, it's when he's joining these fights where the Fiora should be a little bit weaker, a little bit less able to function. He's still able to pop up and pressurize K5 as Cobbin getting his interruption on the recall. He's going to be able to get back to base eventually.
Yeah, and you're definitely right that usually when you think about Fiora, he's not really the teamfight champ, but Usual is just proving us otherwise, as we see Cobbin going in.
Yeah, 2 stolen ultimates there. The stopwatch from Cobbin to buy some time, forced to flash away, will go back in, but gets stunned. Procs the vital shutdown for Uzol.
And Usual once again just saying, you think you can take the fight on me? Nope. And he does a crucial repost onto Cobbin's E and is able to stun him and take him down cleanly.
That's great, and he's going to be able to pick up the tower for himself. The top laner for Invulnerables has been such an outlet of pressure for them, has been just this reliable win condition that they've been able to look towards in the past 2 games. But K5, it's 22 minutes, they're starting up the Baron.
And this definitely seems like a desperation Baron start here from K5. They're starting it up, hoping that they're gonna be able to get a pick here, which they seem to get.
Yeah, Sander already dead, but wow, look how much damage is being dealt to Floops. Forced to lantern away. Here comes Uzol and deletes the Draven from existence. All that gold for naught for K5 as Cobbin in a 1v4 will die. A double for the Fiora.
Yeah, and again, Yusel keeps proving that he should not get Furor for the remainder of the series. Coming in, cleaning up Floops and cleaning up Coven, making sure that they're able to take the fight. They do end up starting Baron here, but Painful is still alive and able to look for a potential steal.
But Nodu goes over the wall and goes so incredibly low. Stardust are forced to run as Invulnerables pop back into the pit. Hellish is a little bit low here. Can heal up with a raw Maelstrom, but need to be careful here if you are Invulnerables. You've done a very good job at fighting back against the early game that K5 have shown. Whirling Death not connecting, and I think backing away from the Baron is a smart call.
Yeah, and it's funny to see how the events are turning out, because it is still K5 with a gold lead, but it doesn't seem to matter that much, because Yusol on this Fiora is just saying, yes, you might have a gold lead, but my champion, me on Fiora, is just too much of a difference maker. He's sitting now on 3 items and is just able to take over this game.
And the early game that we needed to see from K5, it happened, but I think it was that one fight around the Dragon where Invulnerables were actually able to get a load of kills and get a load of gold into these carries, which can function so well, has really sort of put a blocker on what K5 can do. And yeah, that goldie, yeah, basically nothing. Still 30 seconds until the next Drake, and if K5 can get it, it is so point. It's something you can play to. But look at Stardust taking so much damage.
Yeah, and that's what you don't want to see, that your frontline just gets bursted down so easily at the mid-game stages. It basically means that there's no frontline to actually make it easy for Floops to actually dish out the damage that he needs. Ooh.
Painful diving forward, forced to lantern away. Sander being pulled back into K5, but here comes Coven with the Skull and Glacial Fissure. Does get one kill as in dives the Belveth. Here comes Uzul, though. It's already 2 kills in favor of K5. What can the Fiora do? Well, assist Fierce in getting a kill. That's good riposte. A5 win the fight, but the health bar advantage decisively in favor of Invulnerables.
Yeah, map control does end up going over to Invulnerable, despite them actually losing more members. Floops is stepping up very far.
It's just so difficult for him to do anything when he gets death lasers like that. A killing spree for Fierce, and Nodu with no flash will die. A rampage for Uzol, as that's a kill back onto the Varus, but I've seen this one before, Flipper. A double kill for the Fiora, now Painful in a really rough spot.
Yeah, I mean, Yusol is just too good on Fiora. Let's just be honest here. He is playing magnificent, just taking over every fight. He is just saying, okay, yes, you can kill 2 people. I'm gonna come in and just make all the difference. Able to make one member so low that it goes down to Fierce. And we're singing Yusol's praises, but Fierce is silently just sitting in the background, dishing out a bunch of damage as Yusol keeps going. He's like, you think you can go for a steal? Hell no. He just denying everything he can.
Absolutely, but Painful has made his way over. This is a risky place for the Jarvan to stand. You want to go for the steal, but you go in, you could lose your life, and you might not even get it. Painful messes up the combo, can't get into the pit, and blue team will take the Dragon. They'll take away the enemy jungler as well. Yuzol now in a really rough spot in a 1v4, and I don't think the Fiora can win that one. A shutdown for Coben, but crucially, Invulnerables get the Baron, and for the first time in this game, they've got the gold lead at their backs.
Yeah, it's definitely a decent trade getting the Fiora for the Baron, because it does mean now they're able to get to Soul Point. It can be the big difference, because right now they are lacking resistances. So if they're able to sneak away a steal with the Jarvan on the Mountain Soul, it could be what actually enables Floops to have this front line so he can dish out the damage he needs to be able to do for them to win this game.
I think that's the issue, right? You're trying to play Draven into a Victor, into a Varus, characters which fundamentally just outrange you, and it's all right if you can do hit someone when you get in range of them, but if you can't get in range of them, you can't do hit them.
Yeah, definitely. It's like a game of inches in a sense, actually, because it is Invulnerable who needs to scale, and they need to pull out these crazy outplays from the side of Yusol on the Fiora, who actually pulls them back into the game, because we have to remember they were in a very dangerous situation. Floops was sitting with a 4.4k gold lead over Piscalo, and in the end it does not end up mattering all too much, because Yusol is just so good on this Fiora.
And now Invulnerables, it's not going to be the 1-3-1 from them. It is going to be this sort of 4-1, this four-person core, and then Uzult split pushing on the side lane. Still has access to the teleport if his team needs him, but would obviously rather take out these towers instead. Cobbin he's doing pretty decently for himself actually on the Silas. 8 and 3, 3 items himself, but you just can't compare to the power level of the Fiora at this point.
Yeah, definitely. When we're looking towards K5 here, they need to get this miracle teamfight where they get a wombo combo with the Jarvan, Maokai, and Draven ult and hope that they're able to burst down Invulnerable members.
I like this though from Invulnerables, sort of rotating over to try and take down even more. Uzol without the Baron at his back is a little bit surge, but he should be absolutely fine. Nodu getting the hook riposted is now going to be focused down by Invulnerables. The Thresh is dead, and Stardust and Maystoon join him. Actually, Cobbin, who's being focused as the tower is taken out as well. A couple of picks and a structure for Invulnerables as they are looking for the base.
Yeah, and it definitely seems like the scaling side of Invulnerable has just gotten too far, and K5 is just not any longer able to compete in these team fights. It just seems like that all of their chambers are just online and they're not able to match the power level that Invulnerable is sitting at.
Hold on, Flipper. We've still got 10 seconds until Nodu. We've still got 20 seconds until Cobbin is going to be back on the rift. Kainfell going for the ultimate, but dies himself. Floop's now dead as well. A double for Uzol, and Invulnerables are pushing forward, looking to end the game right here, right now. The Fiora's going to be pulled back, but not into the fountain. Minions going to be coming in as the hook connects onto Fierce and the health bars. A little bit too low for Invulnerables to be confident to go forward. A teleport coming through. That's Cobbin joining the fight, steals away the ultimate, dashes back to avoid getting hit, and now the Chains of Corruption can come through. The Chain Lash slightly misses, and Uzol riposting the ultimate.
Yeah, you can definitely see that K5 are trying to pull out all the stuff to see if they're able to reach the backline there, but in the end they end up getting a Nexus tower and they end up getting the inhibitor, meaning that now the base is opened and they're gonna have these super minions to deal with from the bot side of the map. And there's 1 minute and 40 on the Drake, which is the shining light for K5. If they're gonna have any resemblance of a chance this game, they need to fight this Drake, and if they're able to get it, potentially that can be what turns this game around for them.
But it feels like a hope and a prayer right now, Flipper, and K5, they changed things in this draft. They fundamentally shifted their approach, but it feels like it doesn't matter. We're 30 minutes in, and Invulnerables have scaled, and they are, well, a Nexus tower and a Nexus away from putting themselves to match point in this series. And K5, they are going to need to find something special if they want to keep this game alive.
Yeah, and it's definitely, when I'm looking at the side of Invulnerable, Uzol on Fiora is just illegally good. He is just keep up this performance and you'll just win every game if you give this man Fiora, because he's definitely just showcasing why for the rest of this tournament we would talk about this game. There's more series to come after this. If you're a team watching this and you're watching Uzol play Fiora like this, you should not give this man Fiora. You play against him, be scared. He's gonna just take over, because when he plays this champion, he's too good.
But I think the thing is as well, that Invulnerables are demonstrating that they understand how to play around the Fiora pick as well. They're not being over-aggressive when they're going for these pushes. They are hanging back, and K5, with all the engage tools that they haven't been able to capitalize on any overextensions. And Invulnerables playing with a lot of poise, with a lot of patience, and now with 15 seconds to go until the Drake spawns, I don't think the Cell's a realistic thing that K5 can go for.
Yeah, they are pushing to group down mid to see if they can contest, but it's through darkness, as you said earlier. They have to walk through the entire fog of war to see if they can actually enter into the Drake. It might even be too late, because it looks like they're actually just trying to burst it. Ooh, they're not. Okay, yeah. So we will have a fight here for the Drake.
Yeah, the Nature's Grasp, though, losing a lot of value as an engage tool, and this is where the sort of poke can come through from Invulnerable's Fierce. Making his way over there, going for the burst, they are going for the flip onto the dragon as Hellish dives into the pit, steals it away, denies the soul, and denies any hope of K5 in this game. That's already 3 kills in favor of Invulnerables. A triple for Fierce into the mid lane. Uzol's TPing into the base, trying to end it right here, right now.
Yeah, and that is it. They're able to close out the game with the TP into the base. Just going to be able to clean up the rest of the kills, finishing up our game 3, putting Invulnerable on match point.
It's an immaculate performance. It was strong stuff in the early game from K5, but it was not enough to hold against the onslaught of Invulnerables.
Yeah, and they did ban 2 of the 3 champions that we called out to be crucial from the last game, but they left up 1, and I was questioning if it was gonna be enough to counterpick it, potentially. They did not do it, and once again, Usual is showing why it is you cannot give this man Fiora.
But I tell you what, we didn't really talk about him all that much, but Fierce as well on the Victor. I think it was at 7-0 and 13 by the end of that game. Well and truly invulnerable and providing something a little bit different to the composition in terms of this late game mid lane damage threat. And for K5 right now, there's a lot of questions because that early game was disgusting, but it wasn't enough.
Yeah, and you definitely going back to the drawing board here, looking for another way to actually beat Invulnerable here. They seem to be on a roll right now. They've won the last 2 games, and they do in this game they did not seem close. They seem to just take over and just control the game very well with this Fiora.
Well, we'll have to see if K5 are able to make the necessary adaptations to send us to a Game 5. But for the time being, we are jumping to a short break. We'll catch you for Game 4.